Hi everyone, I'm Chrono, Developer Relations at Cartridge, and I am going to be presenting the results of Game Jam 7. So before we get into the winners, let's talk a little bit about the actual participation. So this Game Jam had our best ever turnout. We had 234 people participating over a little bit more than a 3-day window. We ended up with 27 submissions, which was, I think, the most we've ever had, and a lot of them were excellent. We were very impressed with the quality, and we were able to pull together $15,000 as a prize pool, which we're going to give out to some of the best projects right now. So we had so many projects that we love that we just ended up giving everyone that we could a prize. We gave 2 people a first place, we gave 3 people a second place, and we 3 people a third place, and then we just gave out 5 more awards because we really wanted to recognize all of these projects and teams. So without further ado, let's go through the winners one at a time. So the first place winner was Kanoodle Fusion, which, as you can see here, is Tetris, but instead of pieces falling, you actually have to stack them to produce the right color, given the way that different pieces combine and refract light to make new colors. So it's still a shape placing game, but with a whole visual dimension, which was very novel. And as a well executed Dojo game, good contracts, cool client, an MS-DOS aesthetic, which I think really plays in to the gameplay very nicely, we thought this was just a very well executed hackathon project. Our next first place winner was Survivor Valhalla. This game was very interesting for, I think, 2 reasons. One, as a game, you can see that it's like an attack and defense, where you make your defense force, in this case, an army of beasts, and then you make an attack force, which is your fallen adventurers, that you can then go and fight other people's armies. So you have an asynchronous player versus player game, which was very cool and looked good and played well. But I think the thing about this that is the most important for in the context of the larger ecosystem was the way that this game actually was built entirely off of gameplay elements from another game, in this case, Loot Survivor 2. And beasts are collectibles that you earn through fighting them in the dungeon. Your adventure attack force is game sessions that you've already played. And so the way that Survivor Valhalla built itself entirely using artifacts from another game, we thought was exactly the kind of inter-ecosystem integration that we keep talking about, but don't always see. And so I think this is an excellent example of exactly the kind of like meta game development that is possible in a fully on-chain ecosystem. So for that reason, Survivor Valhalla gets first place. Moving to second place, our first winner was Starkcity. Starkcity is, as it looks like, a Monopoly game implemented on chain. You roll the dice randomly, and then you move your character around the board. And every time you land on a space, if you can buy a property, it comes up, do you want to buy? So very simple gameplay. Roll the dice, pops up the interaction, keeps track of all the bookkeeping. So as far as that goes, Monopoly is a game that already existed, but I think to see it put on chain, I think with a pretty high level of polish and finesse, we thought really was deserving of a prize. Our next winner was Ghost Grid. Ghost Grid is a mystery game, so a little bit like maybe Clue, where you're going around trying to get clues to put together the story of the mystery was the game. We thought that as an overall package, putting so much gameplay on chain, doing something that was pretty like novel and ambitious, making like a mystery game, and having it all come together so nicely, we thought was deserving of a prize. Our next second place is Chance Master. Chance Master might look like just a chess game, which if that's all it was, that would be awesome. You know, that's a great hackathon entry in and of itself. But really what happened here, which I think is extremely interesting from a technical perspective, was the way that this entire game was implemented using ZK circuits. And we talk a lot about StarkNet being a ZK rollup. ZK is really used to validate computation. It's not so much used to hide information. Some people that can be a misnomer there. But in this game, the entire client and contracts built an entire zero knowledge circuit so that every move could be made secretly. And while in a chess game of perfect information that you're like, what's the value of the secrecy? I think that a technical implementation of a full end-to-end zero knowledge kind of a system. It was incredibly ambitious. We talk about this in other games. People so far haven't really implemented it. So I think to see it implemented in this way was very impressive. So we really loved Chance Master. We were happy to give it a prize. Moving over to third place, our first third place is Feral Forge. Similar to Survival Valhalla, Feral Forge is really built on top of the Loot Survivor 2 ethos in the universe. As gameplay, it's that game 2048, which you might remember from a couple of years ago. You're basically spawning tiles and you combine them 2 to a 4, 4 to an 8, and that's the gameplay. And so that game, most of it is on the client, only the results are written on chain. Not quite as much of an integration as Survivor or Valhalla, but a really great way to build out the ecosystem and figure out ways to take existing IP, existing concepts, existing lore, existing communities, and give them really like new experiences in their world. So as an active world building, we really like this one, wanted to give it a prize. Moving over to Charon. So Charon was an extremely ambitious game where it's basically a sort of a attack and defense where the attacker can basically make a puzzle. You basically put together like a scenario where there's a ship and it's under attack and you have to rescue it. And so basically you develop scenarios and then other players can come and attempt to defeat the scenario by beating your level. So you have level creation on one hand and level playing on another hand with a sort of like staking and rewards economy there built in. We thought it was actually very cool. We talk a lot about user communities producing content to keep the game going, and Charon really went for it. I think that the contracts are quite rich. The game ultimately was very hard to play, very difficult to play, so I think maybe too ambitious for a jam, but as a concept and as part of an execution, we thought this was really awesome. Our next third prize winner is Witchcraft. I think with Witchcraft, we start to see like the NES or the Super Nintendo era really come to exist. There's a saying in biology that ontology recapitulates phylogeny. And what that means is that whenever you have something grow, it always grows through its phases of its earlier development, right? You have to go through your entire evolutionary history every time you create something. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think you could say in some ways Starknet is speed running the history of video games. And every time we're like speed running 40 years of technical advancement in this entire new ecosystem. And so starting to see like these styles emerge and become more and more tractable and more realistic because of the improvements in the tooling, we just think is really cool. Witchcraft, a really good example, very solid contracts, crafting potions, buying, selling, a whole economy, many resources. So it's quite a full game. Looks good, executed, so we were happy to give Witchcraft a prize. Our first of our runner-ups was Harvest Heist. Similar to Witchcraft, another sort of NES level game where you're going around trying to rob banks, steal resources under a time limit. We see like this 16-bit world here. Ultimately, the integration with the contracts was not so strong and it was very difficult to play. But again, as similar to Charon, the ambition that we're seeing we think is really cool. So we want everyone to just keep pushing in these directions. Another one of our runners-up was Butu. So Butu is a turret game where it's an attack defense where you spawn turrets and you have to defend against ghosts. And I think we really loved someone pushing 3D into game clients. Doing 3D is, again, going back to recapitulation theory, really starting to get these early experiments. Now we're hitting N64 territory or PlayStation 2 territory. So I think starting to see everyone push the boundaries of what can be done and what can be integrated given the technological constraints that we're operating in is awesome. So we were very happy to give Butu a prize. Another winner is Destiny. I think this is becoming a bit of a theme here, but we see a classic Final Fantasy style game, attacker, defender, fantasy setting, like choosing attacks, all of this gameplay, which, is very well established in the conventional gaming world. To see all of it brought on-chain, given the constraints of the on-chain environment, and work end-to-end is just such a great validation of how far this ecosystem is coming, both from a technology and a usability perspective. So for that reason, we wanted to give Destiny a prize. Another example of a great game was Tomie Games. I really loved Tomie Games because I feel like this is the kind of thing I would expect to see on the wall of a digital art gallery. Some digital artists making computer art, and they would say something about how the way that we use the randomness as a way to invite the player into the mysterious ambient world of this mysterious person, and the uncertainty that you experience rolling the dice is the uncertainty that you experience when you're dealing with ghosts. So I think I could have imagined that. In the end, we got it here as a hackathon project, so I think we actually got really lucky because it's very cool stylistically. Yeah, so Tomie Games, rock, paper, scissors, but with a really great ambiance and polish that we did not expect to see at all, and we thought really deserved a lot of credit. Our last winner is Need for Bits. Need for Bits is really interesting because very little is on chain. Like, it's actually almost entirely a client. So you could say, what's that about? But I think just seeing how much they went for the 3D animation and the way they brought in like a whole like chain. Like, the game is about the car as like a miner and the speed is hash power and all of that. So we thought that was very cool. Again, seeing a 3D racer in the client is something very cool to see. We just want to encourage this kind of experimentation, exploration. Yeah, we wanted to give a special prize also to Need for Bits. So that's it. Not even all the projects that we saw were up there. There were amazing projects that we could not give prizes to. But we were just so happy with the turnout and the quality of the work, and to see the ecosystem be so excited and to see it growing and advancing has been super awesome. Amazing game jam, everyone. Thank you so much for your contributions. And we're going to do another one soon. The good times will continue.